Brown 45! Brown 45! Hot, 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 hot!
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the number one podcast in at least three households, one studio, American Football Australia head office. Wade, he loves us, Danny, you know that. NFL Australia head office, they love us as well. They're excited. Week 1 of football is coming, so it's a huge week here, there, and everywhere. We also have a massive week. Joining me, as always, in his little wing of his household, at Danny Webb, AGSA. How are you, big dog?
Mate, I'm flying. Absolutely flying. Week 1, here we go.
Flying because of your birds, man, obviously. Yeah, there it is. It's on the hat. I'm on too. We're on. But I feel weird wearing a hat that way. So I'll wear it this way because I'm cool that way. Huge week, Danny, for us. It started off, we've dropped an episode with cornerback from the Cincinnati Bengals, a young man by the name of Cam Taylor-Britt. He was an absolute legend to speak to, mate. What were your favourite bits out of that episode?
Like, his mentality is insane. He said something along the lines of, as soon as he touched the field, he's not coming off that field. He is going to be a future Pro Bowler. We've already had people commenting on the video and stuff saying that he's the best cornerback in the league. It was an absolute huge get for us, and it was nice to see him just as excited to be on as we were. He
genuinely, at the end of the episode, I remember him saying, I was just as stoked to hear that 2 Aussie blokes wanted to speak to me. So make sure, if you haven't heard that or checked that out already, check it out. He's an absolute legend, and I look forward to going over to Cincinnati and playing golf with him.
Yeah, and also going to the stadium too. You got to tick that box off too.
Yes, pay call. Tick that off. And last little bit of housekeeping, Danny. Make sure that you've got your last... Well, it's not your last chance. You'll be able to get it all season. But DAZN, make sure you get it because you can see every team, every game, where we won't have that opportunity over here in Australia, obviously. You also have Red Zone on there too, which I know a lot of people love that, especially with those early morning games. Get on Red Zone. Watch, I think it's Scott Hansen. He does a fantastic job. So check out our link tree. You'll be able to find our DAZN code. Get it up, get it going so you can watch your team every week. We're on to our 8th episode of our previews. We did speak about this during the week. We probably should have had this last week, really. We've made it as tight as we possibly could, but that's all right. Means a couple episodes this week, which is good for everyone. It's the AFC West. I stuffed up the last time, but it's the AFC West this time. We're finishing off with the Super Bowl winners, which makes sense, really. We'll get straight into it. Last year, the Chiefs did dominate this division. They end up 11-6. Raiders 8-9. Broncos also 8-9, which is a surprise. And the Chargers finish off 5-12 with a few injury issues. In the playoffs, the wild card weekend, the Chiefs beat the Dolphins. Divisional, they went on to beat the Bills. AFC, they went on to beat the Ravens. And as we all know, we've spoken about it before, in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs went on to beat the 49ers in overtime. It was a classic game with a classic finish. I was on the NFL Australia boat, so I completely remember the finish. But yes, it was a huge season for the Chiefs, and they did go on to win the lot, Danny. There's not much more to say about it. We've spoken about every game, so we might as well get into the off-season or this season, what's happened. The Chiefs have dominated the division of recent. Can you see anyone knocking them off as an early tip?
Absolutely not. So last year, the Kansas City Chiefs weren't playing to the level that they should. Their offense wasn't really there. Patrick Mahomes had lost his long ball because he didn't have a receiver that he could actually trust to pass to. It was essentially the defense that carried him through all last year, and then Mahomes doing Mahomes things turned it on in the playoffs. I honestly reckon they took their foot off the gas for the majority of that season and still managed to finish 11-6, still take out the division, so then they had a cruisy run into the playoffs. Then when the playoffs actually started, they're like, all right, here we go. If we're going to do this, if we're going to two-peat, this is the time to do it. And they all switched on, and then they took over. And that's just classic Chiefs football at the moment. The worry is now they've gotten better. They've dominated this division for how long? And now they've gotten better in their off-season. So there is so much talk and so much possibility of the Chiefs pulling off the first ever three-peat.
Yeah, and you could just tell they'd be the kind of people like, Mahomes, Kelsey. They'd be the kind that I got Kelsey's sticker from one of our sponsors. That they'd want that three-peat. They'd want to be the first team to be, everyone remembers the Chiefs being the first three-peat. So that kind of mentality of we're the first to ever do it, better than the Tom Brady Patriots, better than the Steelers of the past, the Cowboys of the 90s. Like, we want to be the first team that pulls off this three-peat. You mentioned that last year, and I can't even count on the amount of fingers and toes that I've got, that each week you were saying they're just getting to the playoffs. They know what football they need to play. The Chiefs are just getting to the playoffs, and then that's when we're going to see the true Chiefs football come out. Because like you said, Kelsey didn't have the year. He still dominated, but he was off, jet-setting around America with his new girlfriend. And Mahomes, his ankle didn't seem quite right after the Super Bowl win the year before. Everyone was calling him Patrick Mahomes. He's got another baby on the way. But he truly did just feel like we're just going to get to the playoffs, and then you'll see us really come out and do what we need to do.
And it's exactly what they did. But now, Mahomes, exactly what you're saying, all he wants to do is etch his name into that history book. He wants to be known as the best quarterback of all time. The way he's going to do that and cement that is by getting this three-peat. It's going to be all he wants all season. So I wouldn't be surprised again if, I reckon they'll start the season quite strong, maybe have a little bit of time off the gas and then really push forward towards the end of the season. But in this offseason, the front office have done incredibly well as well. I know they picked up Hollywood Brown, who's currently injured, but he'll be back. So that's your deep ball threat. They also traded up in the draft to get Xavier Worthy, who was clearly the fastest wide receiver. So they're trying to replace the Tyreek Hill of old. And if they manage that and get him to be exactly what Mahomes needs as that long ball threat, who in this division is going to stop him?
Nah, none. None. You'll find out very soon how many they're not going to stop him. Xavier Worthy, you mentioned. I think he broke the record at the draft combine as well for the fastest 40. So, and I know there was a few early videos coming out that he wasn't. His catching was a little bit off. He had a few drops, but and speaking to the guys from pro kick and things like that, it's a different ball coming from college to the NFL. I don't exactly know how. I think maybe it's a little bit fatter or something like that. So a few of the elite wide receivers, JJ, Jamar Chase, those kind of guys can turn it on straight away. But 95% of the guys coming in and catching this, it is a slightly different ball. So it might take them 1 or 2 weeks to get into it. But having that deep threat of the fastest player that has ever been recorded at the combine is just, it's scary. But they've also kept and built on their defense on the other side of the ball too, Danny.
Yeah, I think all they did, their defense was dominant. I think it was second in the league for last year. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was close. It was up there.
Yep, yeah, right.
And all they lost was Snead, and then they brought everyone else back.
And having Jones, anytime you've got Chris Jones in there, I think he was top 5 voted in the player 100. Anytime you've got him around the ball in the defense, yeah, you're going to have a good defense regardless.
Exactly. So they brought everyone else back and improved their offense. So they've got a dominant defense and improved their offense. And you've got Patrick Mahomes leading the charge. Mate, this is going to be a short preview episode, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Anyway, Chiefs will win it all, and I'll speak to you next year. But it is a genuine question. Who is going to be able to knock off? We don't think anyone realistically is giving away my picks already, but we don't know who. No one's going to beat him in this division. There's some bloody cracking games. Again, I've picked them. They had a tough start to the year. This plays into exactly what you've said. They had a tough start to the year, or they're going to have a tough start to the year. In the middle, they have a relatively easy schedule. The middle, I want to say 6 to 12, 6 to 14. It seems like the NFL's back-ended, or top-end, front-end and back-end, they're really tough games. They do have the Bills in the middle of the year, but the rest of them, off the top of my head, they might have the Steelers in there, which you think they should get the job done against Russell Wilson and the Steelers. And a majority of their easier games on paper are in the middle of the year. So I don't know if they can. They're going to do exactly what they did last year. I think they're going to come out hard. They'll be 3-4-1, maybe 4-2. They'll cruise through the middle part of the year and then come home strong, just leading into playoffs. But that first game that we'll preview in our preview later in the week, Ravens Chiefs, is going to be absolutely electric way to start the season.
It's going to be so fire, but yeah, like you're saying, we'll touch on that in the following episode. But just back on the Chiefs, like no team's ever done a three-peat. And I thought no team ever would until this Chiefs team's come along. And even the betting companies are all agreeing. The Chiefs are already Super Bowl favourites. Season hasn't even started.
Well, we just got to keep the what's the saying that we're going with last year? We've got to pick the Chiefs until they give us a reason not to. So, yeah. All right, we've we've stroked their ego a little bit too much already, I think, which is it's fair enough, but we do have three other teams to talk about. The second team that I want to talk about in this division, I actually labelled, and I'm pretty sure I said it out loud to a few people, that are going to be the worst team in the league by a long way. Until last week, you changed my mind. The Giants are the worst team in the league. They might get, by my predictions, they might actually get more wins, the Giants, but I feel like the future is brighter for the Broncos. I thought they were going to be, well, they still will be. They'll be terrible. They've got Zach Wilson at the time of when I said this as their number one QB. They've actually gone with Bo Nix, and he showed a lot of promise in the 2 or 3 games that he played in the preseason. Hence why I think they're going to have a brighter future than the Giants. But having that Russell Wilson contract still hanging over their head, they're not ready to contend this year, but in the next probably not next year either, 2-3 years' time, if they can actually do some smart picking and not just bring in a QB and sell him for $40 million and still be paying it, I reckon they're going to be a team to deal with in the next few years. But this year is not going to be the Broncos' year, mate.
Well, Bo Nix got named the starting QB after just the first 2 games of preseason. They saw enough in him. They knew that he's probably going to go out there and perform better than Zach Wilson would, which isn't saying much in that. But I think there is a little bit of promise there. And Sean Payton leading this team, if he actually has a quarterback that they might actually be able to get along with. Their defense definitely picked up in the second half of last year after getting destroyed by the Dolphins. When they had that 70-point loss. But they kept their DC anyway in their backs because he really did turn around their defense in that second half of the year. I don't think they're going to be as bad as you're saying, but it's definitely going to have to start trending upwards because they did have to let a few players go because of this Russell Wilson dead money that's just sitting there.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure the dead money's only for this year as well, if I'm right. So realistically, from next year they're going to be building, and like you said, having Payton as their coach, he's won a Super Bowl, so he knows what he's doing. But yeah, it didn't seem that Russell Wilson connection wasn't quite there. Hopefully Bo Nix, who spent a lot of time, I think he's one of the older class of, coming out of college. He spent a lot of time at Oregon, but did quite well. Didn't win any national championships or anything like that, but he did quite well. So he might be able to be one that can actually translate straight into the NFL. So you'll see how harsh my predictions is going to be for these guys. But there was a lot of 50-50 games that were going against them, unfortunately.
I can't wait for your predictions of this one.
Number 3, the Chargers. New look Chargers. They've obviously lost a few weapons on the offensive side, especially. But having Jim Harbaugh coming in as a new head coach, do you reckon that's enough to turn them around?
Well, Harbaugh traditionally, his teams always punch above their weight. So going into this, I think they're not really favoured to do anything too crazy. Like you said, they lost a few offensive weapons. Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams gone. But there's still a lot of faith left in Justin Herbert. I think he really, really needs to prove himself a little bit more this year. But I think a lot of it's going to come in the running game. They picked up the running backs from the Ravens to help them, really ground and pound the ball. It's going to be interesting to see how they go. But like I said, Harbaugh has this ability to make a poor team probably looking good to more great.
They got both of the running backs from the Ravens as well, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So, and that's obviously with the King Henry coming in, but that both had injuries in the past, but both have been quite prevalent on the ground as well. So having that, double-headed running back, could be a way for them forward, because Herbert's been Herbert the entire time. 4,000 plus yards each year for the last 3 or 4 years. But just looking at their depth chart now, Josh Palmer, they got DJ Chark as a second stringer, but he's also questionable with an injury at the moment. Otherwise, it's Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson, Will Dissly as their tight end. I think he was the Seahawks tight end the last few years. So not really great, well-known targets for him to be hitting up and making the most of those yards that he wants to make.
No, and that's where the question mark comes in. And I think the OC loves the ground and pound sort of game anyway. I reckon that we're leaning very heavily on these two new Raven running backs.
The only one that I know is going to go well, Big Joe Alt. I think he was the number 5 pick. I don't know if you saw him in the draft, but he stood up next to, I think he had a family member or when he come up on the stage. He's an enormous human. So having him in at right guard or right tackle is definitely strengthened their offensive line and will go a long way towards us helping this running game. Minshew Mania, our number 4. Is it going to be Minshew Mania again, mate? Like, he's done it at 2 or 3 places now, or is it going to be down to the bottom of the division?
Well, you know how much of a Minshew Mania fan I am. And that was from his time with the Eagles when he stepped up when Jalen Hurts went injured. I like him as a personality. I always said that he deserved his own team because I reckon he actually probably was a good enough quarterback if someone gave him a chance. We saw what he did with the Colts when he went there last year. Mind you, he was under Shane Steichen, who is an incredible play caller, who gets the best out of these quarterbacks. And every time he moves somewhere, that team actually gets significantly better on the offensive side of the ball. So he had that underneath him. Now he's gone to the Raiders. He's been named the QB1. I don't think this is the Raiders' answer. They've bring back Antonio Pierce, which is a very smart decision because I feel like they need some consistency, especially in the coaching department. We've seen how that's almost been their detriment for a lot of times. But then you've got Max Crosby on the defensive side, which, any team that has him in it is going to stay somewhat competitive. And they've still got Devontae Adams, lost Josh Jacobs to the Packers.
Yes, sir.
So it's probably not the answer. It probably isn't the answer to have, Minshew Mania in there as your QB1. He's not the quarterback that's going to change him. He's not the quarterback that's going to push him to the front of the division.
Not in this division, anyway. Maybe if he was down one of the South, NFC or AFC South, maybe. But Cardi's taken his Cardi leave, but he did manage to send in a message. Both of the Raiders nuffies got together. Dave, Big Dave from Wallen, who's been a massive fan of us for many years, getting together to talk a little bit of Raiders nuffiness. And I just want to read you the message that he sent through and just get your... I want to watch your facial expressions as I read this. When you talk the AFC West, I want you to say how the Raiders boys are comparing with AP in the building, Antonio Pierce, with a great D and a solid QB, with some great attacking weapons, similar to the Giants side that won Super Bowl 52. What are your thoughts, mate? The solid QB you've kind of just whacked. Great attacking weapons. They've lost Josh Jacobs. Still got Devontae, but getting a little bit older. He was pretty injury prone last year too. Watching receiver, his shoulder gave him a lot of grief. So getting that little bit older, is Devontae going to be the same kind of thing as well? What are your thoughts on Dave from Wallen sending that through and Cardi putting on his Raiders nuffy hat?
Yeah, I think they've both looking through some Raiders goggles right there. It's not a solid QB room by any means. Gardner Minshew should do enough to keep you in games, but he's not leading you to the top of the division. Between Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams, yes, okay, you've got some weapons. But I think Devontae Adams is still listed as questionable at this current point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I personally, I don't think they've got enough to get it done. I really don't.
Really, I'm just looking at their depth chart now. Besides Devontae, Michael Mayer is probably their best, and he's the second year. I'm pretty sure he's second year tight end. Brock Bowers as well at tight end. They're probably their two better receivers besides Devontae Adams. So I'm not quite sure where he's getting these offensive weapons.
Yeah, hit us up at any given Sunday.
He's big on the Twitter, or formerly known as. I imagine once he hears this, he'll be at Danny Webb AGS. Fuck you, mate. Devontae's going to go for 1,200.
Bookmark this and prove me wrong, but I can't see them, getting above what they did last year.
Yeah. Good luck to him. Good luck to him. And you're about to see what we think, how they're going to go. You're going to take over Cardi's strength of schedule, mate, and who's got what buys.
Yeah, just before we hit that, the AFC West this season, for their interconference, they're facing the AFC North and NFC South. And for that 17th game, they're facing the NFC West, which has a lot to do with this schedule. So the Chargers, despite us ripping them slightly before, we've actually got the second easiest schedule with a Week 5 bye with the Harbour Cup at Week 12, which is very exciting.
Yeah, we spoke about that when we spoke about the Ravens. So, yeah, the Harbour Cup Week 12 is one to look out for, definitely.
The Chiefs have snuck in there with the 12th easiest schedule. I think that was to do with them taking the foot off the gas last season to get themselves to the playoffs. Probably a smart decision. They've got a Week 6 bye. Once again, still probably looking too early.
Yeah, keep going.
The Broncos, 8th hardest schedule, which probably leans into your pick that's coming up in a little bit. And they've got the Week 14 bye, which is good. Great timing for them, but I really don't see them making it to the playoffs anyway, so does it really matter? Probably not. But Week 2 is the game to look out for because that's when they're playing Russell Wilson. Raiders have the 9th hardest schedule. Sorry, Dave. Ain't looking good. And then you got the Week 10 bye. Perfect time for the bye, though. Well, I'm happy with that. I'm absolutely happy with that. And if Minshew can prove me wrong and, take this team places, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, Cardi was always happy with that Week 10 to 14 bye. So he'd be happy with his Raiders sitting. Well, I think he'd be happier than the Week 5 or 6 bye that the Chargers and Chiefs have. But yeah, the Wilson Week 2 for the Broncos and the Harbour Cup Week 12 are definitely some games to look out for. But the Chiefs, when I was picking theirs, they have week after week after week, they have some bloody top quality games. Starting with the Ravens in Week 1, they got San Fran, I reckon, maybe Week 3 or 4 off the top of my head. It's just game after game. Bills mid-year in Buffalo as well. So I actually remember I gave that one to Buffalo because I thought it's going to start to get a little bit cold. I know the Chiefs don't hate it when it's cold, but I reckon the Buffalo are going to sneak one there. Unsurprising, we're going to start at the bottom. And I reckon you could have guessed who it's going to be, just the way we've talked. We've given the Broncos the worst, they got the 8th hardest schedule, but I reckon it's probably the hardest schedule because I've given them 2 and 15. Let me explain. Like I said, I actually don't mind Bo Nix, and I reckon he's going to go well. But this year, I don't see them going that well. And there was a lot of 50-50 games where I couldn't give them the win, unfortunately. And although they have the worst win and loss ratio that we've given out of the 8 divisions, I still think after last week you convinced me they're better than the Giants. And if they play the Giants, they'll beat the Giants. But yeah, 2 and 15 are the bookies. They wouldn't be anywhere near that, surely.
Oh, so you're absolutely smashing the unders, which is quite juicy for you. It's the unders is paying $2 at 5.5.
Oh,
so
I've got 3 games up my sleeve.
You got plenty of games up your sleeve. I couldn't I'm not giving them 2 and 15. I think they're going to be a better team than that. I reckon they're probably pulling that around that 5 to 6. Really depends on how Bo Nix goes. He might, now he's taking that QB1 spot. He might put all that load on his shoulders and drag that team forward, which would be great to see. I feel like all the Denver fans would love to, finally moving on from the Russell Wilson era, which they desperately wanted to, and then for you to give them 2-15, wow.
Yeah, I can't wait for those Broncos fans at TMac AGS AU. Hit me up. Yeah, 2-15. I feel a little bit bad. I do it on an app, and I just kind of go through and pick the games as I see them. And when I got to the end, I was like, "Oh, you poor bastards!" Coming in third, I got the Raiders. Pretty similar to what they were last year. And they were 8-9 last year. 6-11 this year, just slightly down. Again, just that harder schedule, and there was a lot of games you just see, like flip of the coin. I couldn't quite give it to them. So, but I feel like 6-11 will be around the mark.
Yeah, so the over-unders is at 6.5. The other over's actually been the favourable. So the bookies are thinking they're going to have that 7-win season.
What do you reckon? Am I harsh, or is that fair?
Well, I just completely showed it on before, but I think you are a bit harsh. I think around a 7-win season for them is pretty bang on. Like I said, I'd love to see them be successful. I just don't think it's yet. I think they need a better quarterback to lead them that way.
Yeah. Coming in, you can probably guess already, second in the division is the Chargers. So getting better than they were last year at 5-12, 5-11, 5-12. I've got them coming in at 9-8. And again, when I got to the end and I picked, I thought, oh, shit, that's not far off playoffs. And I don't know if I'm confident that they'll make the playoffs. I think Justin Herbert's electric and he can do some amazing things. But again, just no weapons. So unless they absolutely ground and pound every week and run J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards into the ground, I can't. It's weird. I don't know about my 9-8.
So you just said they got 9-8, and then you just talked yourself out of it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll stick with a 9-8, but it's a generous 9-8. Maybe I give one of those wins back down to the Broncos.
Yeah, the bookies agree with you. They've got their over under at 8.5. The over being the favourable betting option for that one. I reckon they potentially might do worse than that.
They got the second easiest. That's probably something that comes into it as well.
For sure. And the bookies see our strength of schedule. They've got that graph. They got it directly from us.
We speak with Sportsbet every week. They know exactly what's going
on. So that's probably playing a lot into it. But like we're saying, with Justin Herbert not having those weapons to throw to, that's his game. He's not really a scramble on his feet sort of guy,
No, he's definitely got the arm. But having that two-headed running back group might help him. But, yeah, because Austin Eckler wasn't really the give him the ball 30 times kind of running back. He was the get near the end zone and definitely feeding the ball then. But, so, look, their running back room's probably better, but their wide receiver room has definitely gotten worse. So, and he's the kind of QB you definitely need someone like Keenan Allen. Is it 9 years in a row or something? He's over 1,000 yards. So he feeds his QB, his wide receivers. Josh Palmer's going to come out and he's definitely number one wide receiver. So he should go well this year. So I don't know what his overs are for catches or for yards, but I'd probably be hitting them because there's not really much more for him to throw to.
No, that's exactly right.
And leading this division, unsurprisingly, going better than they did last year at 13-4 is the Chiefs. Again, 13-4 is probably a little bit generous because we do think they're going to take the foot off the gas at some point. So they'll probably drop a couple of games there.
Yeah, I think 13-4 is generous. I reckon they're going to definitely try and cruise into the playoffs. Them having the best record in the league is not what they're after. They're after that third Super Bowl, that third chip, and that's all they're going to care about. If that means resting, only playing players for the first half as they're getting closer towards the playoffs, because they've got that really early bye. So the coach is going to be playing smart. The GM is going to be playing smart. They're going to be like, hey, get us to the playoffs, and we'll call it at that, because then we'll switch on, then we'll do what we need to do. And then that's why the bookies have got them smack bang even odds at 11.5 over and under. Because I reckon they're going to be sitting around that 11-12 win mark because that's all they're going to need.
Yeah, just get to the playoffs. That's all they want. So, unsurprisingly, as we go to the odds, is $18 for the Denver Broncos? No?
Wait, we can fly through this because my answer is no for all four of these.
Yeah. The Raiders at $9.50, which Yeah, that's the QB room, stuffing them up there. Chargers at 450, I don't hate, but if that was to make the playoffs, maybe. Actually, while you're there, if you're quick enough, see what the Chargers are to make the playoffs. That might be a little bit of juice. But as you said, the $1.30, which off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure is the cheapest odds that we've had for someone to win the division. And it's a no-brainer. The Chiefs have got this one wrapped up already, unless there's something diabolical that happens with, Mahomes.
Yeah, so for the Chargers to make the playoffs is yes at $2.19.
Okay. I don't hate that because,
No.
look, they've got the second easiest. So, and they do have a really good QB, and I really talked myself into their running back room. So, if he can make something, like I can't say it doesn't work because I'm banging on it has to work at Green Bay that we don't have a number one wide receiver. We've got 3 or 4 that can all fill that role. So, if they can have the same thing at the Chargers, 2 or 3 guys step up, Herbert's good enough to find them. So, yeah, I don't hate that $2. I'm really talking myself into the Chargers being not that bad. I really banged on their 9 and 8 is too harsh, and then I've gone, actually, maybe 10 and 7.
I think you've got a little bit too much faith in the old powder blue.
Yeah, probably. I do like Justin Herbert though, but yeah, we'll see how they go early days, and then I might revise that one. But good work, mate. That was one of the quicker ones that we've done, unsurprisingly. We do have a busy week. Like I said, we had the interview that's dropped Monday for Cam Taylor-Britt. Check that out. He's such a great chat. Such a good young bloke that's got an enormous future ahead of him. We've got this one out today, and we're hoping Thursday, I do believe, to get the preview out, which will be the start of our preview episodes each week. They're going to be a bit different to they were last year, Danny boy. So make sure you tune in, get around us. But as always, bring your wallet because we've got some punting and we've got some winners for you.
Absolutely. Let's make some money this season.
Absolutely. We will see you then. See you later, fam. Go Pack, go.